Let's get some analysis now with Dr. Andrew Yaw Tchie, a Senior Research Fellow at the Norwegian Institute of International Affairs. He works on stabilisation, peace operations, peace building and security assistance in sub-Saharan Africa. He joins us from Oslo. Thank you so much for joining us, Doctor. We heard there from a reporter in Khartoum that despite the extension of a ceasefire, that clashes are still continuing in the capital. But despite this, the UN's envoy to Sudan says that the both warring sides appear to be open to the idea of sending representatives for negotiations to take place at some point, perhaps to negotiate a longer-lasting truce. Is this a positive sign in your view, or is it simply just empty words being delivered by both sides?
I think it's a positive sign in the sense that it moves us towards some form of, or should I say, some formal talks where both parties can sit together, talk about their outstanding issues, and clarify what the challenges might be going forward. So it's not, in a sense, a solution in terms of dealing with the issue as in the fighting that is taking place on the ground as we speak right now. But what it is a step towards more long-term potential agreements that could be put in place that would help stabilize the parties from fighting, particularly in areas like Khartoum, where there has been consistent fighting, but also where the RSF have embedded amongst civilians, and then the SF. So the Sudanese army is trying to attack those RSF within populated areas. So I think what that does, it brings us more towards a sort of a formalization of these talks, but actually helps to diffuse some of this intense conflict or violence that has been taking place within the country itself.
And is the fact that both sides are entertaining the idea of sitting down at a negotiating table, is that a sign that either side doesn't believe they can defeat the other at this stage?
I don't think it might be that. I think it also is, to a degree, something to do with legitimacy, the idea of looking to be seen, to want to be dealing with this process and this challenge. I think that is what we are trying to see. As your former reporter has spoken, there is an information war that is going on online, but also the control of state media. So I think some of this is feeding into it. There is also this aspect of, okay, if we are seen as resolving it, then we are seen as supporting the civilians to try and diffuse this violence as well. So I think we're seeing efforts along this line, as it were. So I'm not convinced that fully that these actors are wholeheartedly ready to move this process forward. The growing concern that I have is that everyone, particularly the international community, is focused on these two actors, and so we're neglecting the issue of Darfur and other regions where there is a potential for more violence to take place, but more sustained violence. And that is, for me, the more alarming issue that I haven't seen people deal with. This is just, as it were, the mushroom, the sort of manifestation of the fruits, as it were, but not actually the root cause issues being dealt with here.
Well, yes, that's right, because as we know, there is already a power vacuum in places like Darfur, so conflict has already been brewing there for quite some time now. But in terms of the various regional powers that are at play here, which one is applying the most pressure on either of the sides, really getting them to sit down at some sort of negotiating table?
I would say it's probably the US who's been leading the charge here. We see the US working with the UK, potentially the Norwegian government as well, working on the ground to resolve some of this. And again, states like Saudi Arabia, Qatar also maybe playing a role here as well, would also definitely be shaping, but also moving the actors to try and come to agreement. As I mentioned, I think that the larger challenge is not just Darfur, but also Khartoum, but also areas like Abyei, but also South Sudan, where you have these transitional agreements put in place and nobody meets the agreements as well. So these are the sort of concerns that I would say for neighboring countries, but also for the wider region as a whole.
Okay, Andrew Yaw Tchie, we will have to leave it there, but thank you so much for sharing your analysis with us.